So, welcome to a very special episode of Godzilla Evangelists, or as I think we said we were going to call it, the Jedivangelists. Or
Da,
the
da, 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 da. Da, 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 da.
The
Iconic soundtrack.
Jedivangelists. It is.
the Seventh Day Jedis? I don't know. Anyway, I can't actually recall the factors that put us here, but we decided to just throw together a quick Star Wars centric episode for you all before we dived back into Godzilla.
You're welcome. Gonna be fun.
Yes, we all watched the original movie, the 1977 classic, but this is going to be a little bit free-ranging. We're going to kind of talk about all different kinds of Star Wars stuff and our experience with it, although this is the first time Joanna has ever watched a Star Wars movie.
I was like, I've only seen episode 2 when I was 8, so this will be a lot of me being silent and nodding along on video in the background.
Also, yeah, I mean, it wasn't that we set out to do a Star Wars movie. It was that we set out to do a podcast, a get-together, and then discovered Joanna had never seen it. And Ryan and I both said, what?
And I think I proudly said, I don't know, guys. There's this movie franchise I've never seen. I love Taika Waititi. He's involved now. I should learn.
And he always has been. It's incredible. From the beginning.
He was 3 years old
Yeah.
for this one, but, he made a major impact on it.
May the force be with you. That's not a good voice. But I was trying to do baby Taika Waititi.
God, he would totally be C-3PO. I'm like, oh, he would have killed.
R2, is that
Well,
you?
he does play a droid.
Does he?
A much meaner one, though.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
I've never
in,
seen The Mandalorian either, so.
All right. Well, maybe we'll get to that eventually. But he
Yeah.
plays.
You got to start at the beginning here.
Yeah.
In the beginning. That's my main
In the
takeaway.
beginning. So I should have asked this ahead of time because I could have sent it to you guys. But which version of the movie did you all watch?
The one that the Xfinity TV at my parents' house had.
Okay. Probably the most recent one.
Yeah, I watched the Disney Plus edition, but I will say I am an original theatrical purist.
Yes, thank you.
How does the Disney Plus version vary?
And there are like 8 fucking versions of this movie, and they all vary almost not at all, but in really irritating ways. It's actually it's quite a thing. I feel like Ryan can fill in more of the details, but essentially,
Yeah.
George Lucas started the trend of meddling with the movie by repeatedly hiding the theatrical version of the movie and doing new versions that add a bunch of CGI nonsense and subtly adjust little things. And then I think that there were a few versions of that, and then I think that Disney Plus did a whole nother one. Where they made a couple new adjustments to that one.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole episode just on this. Because they've changed this movie. Let me count them up. Once in 1981. Once in 1997. Once in 2004. Once in 2011. And now again for Disney Plus. They've changed this one 5 times. And it's never for the better.
I'll fight you a little bit on that. In that the one thing that was an improvement, not over the original, but over one of or several of the old ones, is the Han no longer does a sideways neck extension to avoid Greedo's blaster, which is honestly,
Okay, that's true.
An improvement. It still probably should have just been the way it was originally, but that was the stupidest thing ever.
Yes. So, Joanna, you remember how Han faces that bounty hunter, Greedo, in the cantina?
Yeah.
And he just shoots him cold. That
Yeah.
was the most controversial change, because that was probably the only one that actually affected the character. Where the first time he changed it, he had Greedo shoot first and Han shoot back in self-defense.
Yeah.
What did you see? What happened when you saw the scene this time?
Yeah, so in the original, it's just you see this explosion in front of Greedo, and then he drops dead.
Right. Han shoots him in cold blood. Yeah, which is awesome.
Oh, I think I saw
I
that.
And George
Instead
Lucas,
of him being shot up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
he's never shot at.
I think George found that to be a little too cold-blooded for one of our heroes.
Okay,
So,
see, that feels like a cheat. Like, you're the director, you made the choice. He's not the, he's the kind of avant-garde on the side good guy to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to give him a character arc as
Yeah.
opposed to him being like flat.
But
Right.
no, I want to say the '97 version, they did something, and it's best. Everyone who's listening should just go look at the breakdown of this scene on YouTube. But essentially, there was a version of it where they like froze a frame in the wide shot and added a blast coming from Greedo's gun, and what they were trying to do was have it look like Greedo shoots at Han's head and Han dodges it and then shoots Greedo under the table. But what happens is they basically use a freeze frame, and it looks like a freeze frame, and a blast goes at Han, and they do this like Photoshop morph, like where his head is a frozen frame, and they just pull it. It doesn't rotate or turn at all. They just pull it sideways so his neck becomes an S curve, and that's how he dodges it, and then he shoots, and it is the craziest thing. So it was this Disney Plus version had it kind of, they sort of shoot at the same time.
I just want to say we're about 2 minutes in, and we are already way deeper into the weeds than I ever imagined, and I am here for it. I'm here for my friends, the Star Wars nerds, here for the knowledge.
Well, really, this is well litigated territory.
Yeah.
I feel like this is
Geeks
very
have been
popular
arguing
content.
about.
We're surprised you didn't
Yeah.
find it in your original Googling of the film. How dare you, Joanna? Damn it.
Geeks have been arguing about this one since '97. I guess we watched different versions of it, but that's okay. We can talk about our different experiences. But I will make sure you guys have the theatrical versions if we decide to do a follow-up on this one.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I have them.
Do I
How?
call Disney on you right now, or is Lucas?
Should I hit
That
up
is
George?
funny. One thing before we get off of this.
Will
Apparently, it is dangerous to openly admit that you have a film print of the original Star Wars, because no joke, people from Lucasfilm will come track you down and take it back because you're not legally supposed to have them. So like the film preservation community, it's like a well-kept secret
Wait,
if you have a Star Wars
How'd you
print.
get yours? Was yours like grandfathered in? Like how?
Oh,
people
don't
at
worry. I
home-
don't have a film print. I have like some digital
Oh.
rip. But
No.
people who have like an original film print of it, like you're not supposed to say you have it because they'll come and take it from you.
That's spooky.
It's pretty weird and spooky is the right word. Well, to get onto
The film.
1977's Star Wars from the beginning.
A New Hope.
Joanna, what did you think when you saw that title crawl scroll across the screen?
I was like, this is weirdly very thrilling. I did not expect. Like the music is so good. It's.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I watched this video one time where they're like Marvel movies don't have, a through line kind of thematically for music. And I feel like I'm like, wow, I don't really know too much about Star Wars. I've seen one of the new ones, but I'm like, the music really is exciting. And it was exciting to be like, wow, it's 1977. I'm in a movie theater. Okay. Me and my friends waited outside in line. I asked my mom, she's like, yeah, we waited outside in a line around the corner for the movie. I was like, wow, because it was that popular. She's like, no, you had to do that for every movie because you couldn't buy tickets online. I was like, all right. But she's like, but it was very popular.
Yeah, my dad talks about how mind-blowing it was for him and how there were several days where he would go for one showing like early in the morning, and then he would just hide under the seats whenever they would come in to clean the theater so he could stay, and he would watch it all day. He would stay until it was dinner time.
I like that
and
his move wasn't to just go hang out in the bathroom. He was like, I'll just hide under the seats, and if a broom touches me while they're cleaning up the popcorn, so be it. Was he small? How old was he? Was he a child?
I guess he was a pretty skinny 14-year-old to be able to pull that one off. But maybe they cleaned the movie theaters pretty lazily in West Virginia.
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
But yeah, he and his friends like could quote the entire thing start to finish, and he passed that love on to me.
Yeah, Sam, you were saying that you were like surprised how much it was ingrained, or
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can give a quick history, which is that we were talking about this beforehand, and I saw it when I was 4, and it was my Star Wars was my favorite thing for most of my early life, and was it was like my thing, and it was honestly that we slash I was the right age for the prequels hitting just as it's like we had seen them, and then you could just roll straight into the prequels. It's like you see the originals, and then it's like, all right, I don't know, 7 or 8 when the first prequel came out, and it was like, we're gonna go see that now, and this is and I already love this. This is more of that thing. We didn't have that separation of like, no, this is a different, far more legislative version of Star Wars. But so it was my favorite thing, and had all the Star Wars Legos, and so.
Oh yeah.
And then I think probably in like late, probably in my 10, 11, 12 range, it just like I didn't watch it as much, and then in high school certainly not, and then went to college and sort of like. I think I maybe rewatched them, but was kind of like, yeah, they're, and by they I mean the original trilogy, but especially the first 2. I felt like, they're good. They're not like my thing anymore. And this viewing, well, first off, I said that I was surprised how much was ingrained, because every line was, or every sound, every noise that R2-D2 makes, I'm like, yeah, that is the noise I expected to happen right there, which is frightening. But also I found it to be more like kind of thrilling and delightful than I think I expected. I kind of expected like, this is this thing I know really well that I, grew up with, and it won't have an effect on me, and it sort of did, which is crazy to say that you're surprised how much you were affected by the most popular movie of all time, but I was.
Yeah.
You were too cool in college for it. You needed a brief jaunt to feeling too hip, and
Yeah,
now to find
yeah.
your love of it again.
I was like, this is the hero's journey. Need more complex twisty turnies in my movies. Have you seen Memento, Ryan?
So early in the movie, it's kind of unusual because this is kind of known in like film geek circles, but this is a movie that was totally saved in the edit. Like, it was apparently like an unholy mess of a first cut that nobody liked. But it had a lot more Luke in the beginning. Like, you had more of like a proper introduction. Like, as it is, he just kind of shows up when they're buying the droids, right?
Yeah.
So you end up with this unusual beginning to this movie where it's just like, you just keep transitioning from one character to the other like a chain.
Yeah, it was kind of.
the
It felt
closest-
like it took like 25 minutes to settle in.
Yeah.
I like R2-D2
And-
though, so I was like, all right,
Oh.
I'm fine to follow him, but like,
Yeah, they're so charming.
They are. That's what really hit me is that kind of weirdly, for as sort of up and down as certainly Luke and Leia are as performers and characters, like R2-D2 and C-3PO are like, they're just right out the gate, like completely wonderful, like spot on.
yeah,
And you're
killer,
like, oh,
spot
yeah.
on, like clear understanding of who they are, and they just stick to it.
And apparently, I've also heard. Not only was the first cut a mess, but apparently there were like a million drafts of this, and George sort of for 10 years was trying various versions of the Star Wars, and different characters, and yeah.
What did George do before this? And when he like pitched it, were they like, we're on for the full number of films, or like, we'll go with one and see what happens, knowing that he was kind of like, I'm starting on episode 4.
Yeah, well, he likes to tell this story that he plotted it all out in advance, but even he didn't really have a plan to go beyond this one. This was his one-off, like, Flash Gordon, like, homage. Like, oh, remember these, like, weird science fiction stories that I watched growing up?
Really
this
good
is sort
George
of my modern
Lucas.
version.
Really good.
Thank
George
you.
Lucas.
Because right before this, he did
American Graffiti.
American Graffiti.
Oh, okay.
And then he was going to actually go do Apocalypse Now, but that kept getting delayed because, anyway, this is a whole other story, but he ended up doing Star Wars instead and changed everything.
I assume it was a little bit a situation of American Graffiti was successful and acclaimed, and so I think people were willing to kind of make a weird passion project that apparently kind of was always sort of a mess of ideas that kind of, I think, didn't. I mean, in every step of the way, people collaborated and kind of shaped it. But I don't think it ever, in any stage until the very end, I think it was never like, this auteur had this perfect vision for this and told everyone what it should be. It's like, I think, I think that the guy who did all the concept art, I think like so much of what is iconic about it is visual and certainly music and sound, later. But like, I think that a lot of good people kind of shaped it. In the same way that I don't think that R2-D2 and C-3PO were those characters until later on in the script process. I heard that R2-D2 was at one time a like swearing robot, like a tough robot from the streets. Which, can you imagine? Can you imagine that movie?
Maybe he is, and C-3PO is just editing it out the whole time. We just aren't aware.
That's sort of what it is. I love that yeah, you kind of get that that R2-D2 is a little bit sort of belligerent, but you can't hear what he's saying, and it's wonderful, and it's all implied. Whereas if he was actually being difficult all the time and swearing, and oh geez, that would be a disaster.
Yeah, he'd be such an annoying character.
He just seems kind of above them all, but in a good way, in a way that I'm like, yes, you do know what's going on. Shh, don't tell the plebeians.
Yeah, he's very stubborn, that little guy. But yeah, eventually they end up on Tatooine, and we get to meet Luke, who
is 12.
Now I'm very curious to hear what you think, because when you're a kid, you empathize completely with Luke and like, oh, like this is how I would act in this scenario. But as an adult, you're like, you are 19, man. Grow the fuck up.
As an adult, you're like, you are so whiny.
He is.
And he talks so fast. Every single line is like, we got to do it because they're coming, so we got to do it. You're like, oh my God, slow down. Just try to add some, like, change it up a bit, change it. I love that one part when they're like, now, Luke, now, Mark, imagine you've got a really good secret, okay? And he really takes it and he goes, well, she's rich, he like says. And I was like, wow, you can see the acting note happening as he's doing it. He was also 26 at the time, which was, he truly looked like 12.
I had a thought that I had never had before, which is they mentioned she's rich. Does her wealth carry over now that her planet has been destroyed? Like, what kind of solid state is that wealth being kept in?
That's true. I mean, like, Han has a couple crates of whatever.
Yeah.
Space gold. That he walks off with at the end, but where did that come from?
Like, you guys watching it now, are you like, okay, he's all right at what he's doing, He's like, what are your vibes watching him
Luke?
now? Yeah.
Or Mark Hamill, or both?
Both, like, the conjunction of them.
Gotcha. I like Mark Hamill quite a bit, so like his like legacy charm retroactively comes back and makes me not hate him. But it's not easy sometimes, especially during the first half of the movie, because you're like, you are a child, like you're acting like way too young for this part. And yeah, you're right. He's like, he's not terrible, but he's hitting the acting note hard.
Okay.
Really hard. Talking so fast. Everyone is like at a 9 or 10 for like a solid 80% of the film.
Which is famously George Lucas's only directing notes he would give to the actors were faster and more intense.
So here's,
oh my God.
And that's so unsurprising, knowing more of his films. But I went into this knowing that Mark Hamill's performance, and to a lesser extent Carrie Fisher's, were a little shaky.
Yeah.
And the thing I noticed this time that I think is at least a little bit of an excuse for Mark Hamill is that, like, when you say he reads so fast, some of those lines are a mouthful. It is unbelievable how much stuff is in these lines that doesn't need to be. It's like the first time we see him in the there's like a scene where he's just gotten 3PO and R2-D2 and he's in there and he has the line that's something like, the line was something along the lines of I am a farm boy who will never make it in the big city. But the line is, Biggs was right. I am a something who never make it to blankety blank specific place. And it's like, that is first off, who is Biggs? And apparently that was a deleted scene. But like it isn't. It's like that kind of stuff. It's like I don't know how you'd deliver that, like except just at light speed.
Yeah, like when he's convincing, like he's like, we gotta save the princess. They gave him like a solid few paragraphs to spit out. He's like, well, she's the princess and she's gonna save blah, blah, blah. Never once does he say like, hey man, they killed my family and their fucking skeletons burnt to a crisp. Okay, so this is some serious shit for me, and now I'm gonna be emotional. No, they're just like.
Well, yeah, and I think George Lucas is a verbose writer in general, and you certainly feel it in the prequels more so, because I think that in this, even with those, I think that you feel, knowing his other stuff, you feel the hands of other people who are editing some of his ideas down a little bit, because like there are some lines like that, but like for example, apparently his original title crawl was like, the great Mr. Blankety, Jedi Master Blank from blank blank son of blank wants to, like it was like really verbose. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's online. And
less is more, George.
And basically, Francis Ford Coppola, who was a friend of his, who was also I think fairly critical of it when he saw it, was like, George, let's cut that crawl down a little bit to the basics. Just like it's a time of civil unrest. Like, do you need all the specifics of the places and the the names that we don't know what they mean?
That's good to know.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Collaboration was good for George Lucas, because when you see him become the big boss who nobody dare question, then you start to see these movies really fall apart. But like when people could like question him more and like push back on like what is a strong but not always right vision, that's when the movie, like, you see like all the pieces mysteriously align and it starts to work.
Yeah.
Like later in the movie, and I know movies don't shoot in chronological order, obviously, but I know that these scenes were shot towards the later end. Like the Death Star stuff, that dialogue starts to sparkle a little bit. They have like some
in the room
back and forth.
Yeah.
When they're like fighting with each other and like making fun of each other, it's like very human and alive, and you're like, okay, like they're like finding ways to make it work, or like picking on poor beleaguered George Lucas and changing the line.
Even Darth Vader was like talking a bit more than I expected. I was like, why is he saying so many things at once? Like, he's not playing it cool here. He's giving way too many details away.
The production design, especially, everything about it is so timeless, where there aren't that many things that are huge tip-offs to this being the 70s, except for the hair. And this is gross. This is low of me to notice, but like the choice for Princess Leia to never be wearing a bra also is very 70s. I was like, I never noticed that before. Like, until this point, she just never had one. And it's like, and those were like the two things.
Well, not as only she not wearing a bra, she's taped down because George Lucas wanted her to look more like a boy, which is exceptionally strange.
Especially because they're not trying to play her off as a boy.
No.
Yeah.
No, also they're not trying to always play her off as American, because there's that one random scene where she's British.
Oh my God. Okay,
yeah.
I thought I was crazy. I wrote a note. I was like, is she speaking in a British accent? And she was saying a lot of lines, right? It's like when they first met her, I'm like, whoa. Is she English now? And then I forgot about it by the time she showed up again.
Yeah, it's
oh my God.
In the first scenes, she has her American accent, Carrie Fisher's American accent, and then there's a scene where she suddenly has a British accent when they're about to blow up Alderaan, and then she goes back to American again.
Yeah.
And
I think just being in the room with the overwhelming presence of Peter Cushing, she just couldn't help but take on a British accent.
That could be. I mean, I was thinking it was just the first scene they shot, but maybe not. Maybe it was. She just couldn't help it. Carrie, can you stop talking like that? Talking like what? Yeah.
Not Alderaan. Please, sir. She's like auditioning for Lord of the Rings early.
Yeah.
Like, it's calm down.
You almost had like an Oliver type of thing going on there. Please, sir, spare my planet.
Not my planet.
Give me a bit of gruel.
I will say though, I think when Obi-Wan came in, I was like, all right, now here's a guy who's an actor, and he really like brings it down. He's like, all right, you youths, here we are, okay, and we're gonna make a movie now.
That's probably exactly what the dynamic was on set. Was like giant movie star Alec Guinness, who had done it for so long, just coming on and being like, you have all these weird kids and this weird director and who only tells people to go faster, and he's just like, I will lead you guys through the wilderness.
I felt kind of like I was watching the OC, and then like a proper older actor came on. I was like, we got all these San Diego teenagers hanging out with their beautiful hair, their flowing, sunny clothing.
No, I was gonna say I felt that with Harrison Ford as well, where like he shows up and you're like, oh, this is a star. This guy's a star. Like the moment he shows up.
Oh yeah, yeah. Harrison Ford is Han Solo to me forever and always. As much as he will hate that.
Why does he? Yeah, that's what my
like,
dad said. Why does he hate it?
I think he's just known to be like a grumpy, cantankerous son of a bitch who's like not easily made happy. But I think it was that he didn't think the writing for the character was interesting, especially in the third movie he did. But I think he softened on it over time. I mean, he came back and did it.
Yeah,
after this most recent.
He also, it's funny that he's the one who most hates it, because he's the one who has the most other roles that have been iconic. You know what I mean? Like
I was gonna say, didn't this role probably make him though? Like, wasn't this the first big one for him?
I mean, it was this and then Indiana Jones, like some.
But I mean,
but like he might not have gotten Indiana Jones if he didn't have this.
Right.
Well, and apparently, I think,
and then Blade Runner.
Yeah. I mean, in the 80s and early 90s, he was in just a ton of. I think for a while he had. I think until Samuel L. Jackson, he had some sort of record of most movies that had made over a certain amount under his. I mean, just huge hit after huge hit for him. But he apparently early on, George didn't want to cast him because he was in American Graffiti. I don't think he's a huge part in it, but he's in it. And I think George was like, I want to have all kind of unknowns, and Harrison, you're too known. But he would do like reads, like he would read for Han Solo in when they were casting Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, because he was a friend of Lucas. And at a certain point, people were like, yeah, just stop fighting it. Like, he's obviously the best option, and you've heard him read like 1,000 times, because he's clearly Han Solo. And so I think he kind of caved and was like, all right, I'll cast this awesome guy who's a giant movie star in the making and who is perfect.
Okay, also, I will say, like, in no fucking world is Princess Leia going with Luke, okay? All the tension they were building in, the bickering, the flirting, fighting, there's just, like, there's no fucking way. That was the most unrealistic thing I saw on screen.
It seems pretty clear that the movie wants us to believe that there is chemistry between Princess Leia and Luke. Like, it's certainly...
And there is not.
Not particularly, but they want it
there
to be.
Is
it's
from
just,
Luke to Leia, but it's not fucking coming back, except for what's written
Harrison
in the script.
Ford just has so much raw sex appeal.
Yeah, so much more like...
He just soaks it in.
Like, when Leah's like, oh, you're flying that ship? I'm like, okay, well, she's not saying those fucking lines to Luke. Come on. Also, when they're like, oh, give him a kiss on the cheek right before he, like, fucking Spider-Man's across that platform. I'm like, first of all, he doesn't know what he's doing. She should have grabbed it, and that would have been better. But second of all, I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, George, what? You're going to, like, build up all this anticipation on his end, and then the first kiss is going to be like, well, oh, we got to jump across the bridge, and it's going to be, like, half a second, and he's going to be like, what? And then they have to keep running. Like, it makes no sense. Like, it was, like, just wait 5 minutes. Just wait till they have a second. Because it felt so
based
forced.
on Luke's behavior, he is 100% a virgin, and probably has never been kissed. He's never been kissed.
Oh yeah.
So this is theoretically the first time a girl has kissed his cheek, and he's about to do something where he needs all of his focus. I'm just saying.
She's gonna fuck him up.
I know your point is being very well made. That he's been living out on this farm for years, probably never been kissed. Luke is swinging this chasm with a gigantic boner.
Yeah, and like, why? She's just that would not be the smart choice if you were actually trying to save your life. You would not be like, this
Right.
will help. You're just going to wait it out.
Okay, so while we're unpacking
Maybe
this,
she was hoping that raw, horny energy was
God.
going to get him across.
Too erratic. You can't trust it. What were you going to say, Sam?
we don't see a single girl who's his own age until Princess Leia. Like, when he's on Tatooine, it's not like we see, like, his friends who are... Like, basically what I'm saying is, I can only imagine him going through puberty and not seeing any human girls his age, and all he has is robots and Jawas. And I'm sure he's got some really weird... there's just a lot of tension there. I can only imagine him just being like, I don't get to see human women, so I don't know, this R2 droid.
I also, too, I was like, okay, if he uses some more of the Force live in action, person to person, and she's seeing it, like, then I could get how you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe this guy, though, that's pretty cool. But the fact that the only time it was utilized was at the end via a ship, that kind of, like, could have just been good aim also. Like, we don't know. We don't fully know. I think it's, like, less powerful than seeing my dear friend Obi-Wan, you know, doing the whole little thing. We're not here. They're fine. They too shall pass. Like, I don't know. So I just was like, there's no appeal here.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
And it's funny, you kind of inadvertently brought up something that I really noticed, is that there is so much, like, iconic Star Wars stuff that only comes in the second movie. Like Darth Vader is, like, very much, like, almost, not quite, but almost a background character. Like, he's, like, not driving very much of the story.
Yeah, that was my other main question. Like, what is Darth Vader's position? Because he's not the leader, but he's kind of the leader. And then, like, why was he flying a fucking fighter plane at the end? I'm like, he's for sure above this from all I've heard. Like, what are we doing? Can you explain his position to me in the government?
I cannot. At least not without getting into the prequels, which I like to believe don't exist. So yeah, he's just kind of like a grunt, like an impressive weird grunt. And there's so much like of the iconic like things people associate with Darth Vader, including his theme music, like his like red lightsaber. A lot of his classic lines are in the second one.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't that scary. And also there were times where I was like, ugh, I miss the love of my life, Adam Driver, which I know some people, and I know it's not the same, obviously, but, you know, he gives a strong performance. People can fight me on that, but I will defend him.
I mean, Adam Driver is great in everything.
Yes.
Much like the people in this movie, he just didn't get much to work with in these movies.
Okay, so Joanna, have you seen the new Star Warses?
I saw the oldest new one. The first one.
Force Awakens?
The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Probably the best of the three.
I don't agree.
That third one.
Well, we can have a whole other debate about the last.
Yeah, but
Jedi.
I'm going to stake my claim here and say that the two JJ ones are not very good. And I will say that The Last Jedi is hit and miss, but has the only things I like about the trilogy in it. And I will go to the grave. I know that people hate Last Jedi, and there are bad things about it. But there is that, like, to me, the first and third are like soulless. Like, they just have nothing. They do nothing for me. There are zero things I like about them.
I haven't seen the first one since the first time I saw it, so in retrospect, you're probably right. But, Joanna not having seen all three of these, let's move back in time
to a good Star Wars.
Yes, to a good Star Wars. Yes, I think we've covered all the characters sort of at this point. So do we just want to talk about the cool, funny, and bizarre scenes that we liked? Yeah, actually, did we need... I know it wasn't in the original, but the Jabba scene with CG Jabba does nothing for me. We really don't need it. Right. The Greedo scene has all the information that's in the Jabba scene.
It wasn't in the original?
It's completely...
No. Okay, because I was like, are we really just showing this so we're all like prepared when the bikini scene comes eventually along? Like, that scene made me be like, do we get to the fucking bikini scene in this film? It doesn't feel long enough to do that, but... Yeah, that was way dumb. bad story.
Yeah, why does he? Because it was a deleted scene. Because there were a lot of deleted scenes that were superfluous information, and that they shot, and they shot it with just a guy as Jabba. And then for some reason he really felt like in probably the 97 version that they needed to put Jabba in there, but I just never understood why.
Plus, I think it's more interesting when you don't see Jabba until the very end. You're like, what is he going to look like? What is Han Solo's nasty criminal boss going to look like? And then he's this disgusting monster, which I love. But the scene is totally unnecessary. But speaking of gross monsters, I love that George Lucas wasn't satisfied with the makeups in the cantina, so he just had Rick Baker go and make a bunch of alien masks. So almost all the stuff in the cantina was shot later. It's just weird put a guy in a mask up against a wall and shoot it.
Yep.
And there's I don't know. They're so low tech, but I love all those weird monsters.
My mom was saying that she's like, that was a scene that people really talked about when we all left theaters, because it was just so cool to see all of those monsters kind of all. I was like, man, this is the jazziest fucking place I've ever been to in my life. They're like, "Bidi-bidi." I was like, wow, I feel like I'm back in NOLA. I was just there right before quarantine. I'm like, oh my god. It was such fun though, and I think the fact that it comes back again and again, and
the thing that I thought that really stood out to me this time that I thought was just awesome is how lived in everything feels, and that bar is just a grimy, it's a dive bar in space, great, that's the kind of intangibles that this movie really does nail, and it's certainly some art direction stuff, but everything is so dirty. And I just love that. It's you have such good contrast. It doesn't just feel. I think a lot of sci-fi movies, even now, but certainly then, it's everything is kind of anywhere you go is sort of it's a different kind of a clean room. And this, this movie has these super soulless, clean, hallways in the Death Star, but then you have dive bar and fingerprints all over all the robots, and that's just, it's great. That's so good, and it really really makes it you want to go in the Millennium Falcon because there's just so many doodads hanging off of everything. You're I want to pull on one of those doodads.
Yeah, I mean it so helps the movie not age because it's already pre-aged. It's this kind of weird analog world where the holograms look like old VHS tapes that somebody watched too much. Just the art direction, the sound design, all that is just on 100%.
I think it was also cool watching it, and again, having not seen it before, and just being wow, the fun I see when Chris Pratt and crew are hanging out in Guardians and blah blah, the kind of earlier beginnings of those kind of scenes happening.
Mm-hmm.
Completely.
I do think when everyone showed up in those orange outfits, and then Luke was like, "Woohoo! Now I'm in my orange outfit." I was like, "This is happening very fast." Well, they you know what I mean? They're kind of, that I thought was kind of not fully lived in. They're just and we are the rebels, and now we're all standing in a circle. We're watching what's going on, and now we're all in our costumes. I was like, boom! Wow, there's not
quick.
Really any backstory on them.
No, they I was surprised because I watched it in 2 stints, and I know this movie super well, but I was like, boy, I've only got 25 minutes left, and they haven't started the raid on the Death Star. It is surprising. They're basically, most of that middle portion of the movie is them running around the Death Star pre aerial strike. And,
right.
And yeah.
That maybe
I
would have thought it extraneous, but maybe it would have been fun to have a scene or two of those people before that, but who knows?
I agree and I don't, because obviously, well, I think ultimately it would have been the wrong decision, because it would have given us more insight into the characters, but I think we're supposed to have just enough, and I think we get just enough, and I think that a modern movie without a keen eye would stretch out the Death Star battle stuff for an hour, and that would be the last hour, and there'd be different phases to it, and characters would come in and out, and there'd be all sort of dramatic shots. So the fact that it's, I don't know if you would call it tight, but I'll call it tight. A tight 20.
Right.
That last action scene is a tight 20. I think that's exactly perfect to keep people thrilled and bring you to the end.
I think hearing you guys say it for this film at least especially, that it really was kind of the other people on board too that helped to make it what it was. Like, the script is pretty simple, I think, and like at the end when it's like, oh, we can kill the Death Star by one single shot we have to do that's on the exterior of the Death Star, like that seems pretty easy. Like, what? And I don't know. So, because I was just thinking, I was like, would this have been a compelling read? Like, now hearing that it went through multiple drafts and that it was kind of like, will it be made, whatever. I was like, I didn't imagine some like assistant somewhere being like, wow, this is gold. Like, it must be made. So
yeah, it was like made by like the skin of its teeth. Like, the head of 20th Century Fox had to like stand up and basically say like, I'm betting my job on this. Like, he really smartly believed in it.
Okay.
He's probably one of the smartest producers of all time because he also got Alien and Blade Runner made.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
he did pretty well. That's a good, smart person.
Yeah, he staked his job on it. It wouldn't have gotten made.
That or he's a nerd.
Right. Probably the more main part of it. Okay, this is because it is. I was like, wow, the soundtrack, like the look of certain scenes is really cool, but I'm like, the basic story is like, we're at point A, we're at point B, we go to point C, then we go back to point B, and then we're back there again. I'm like, it's pretty. And also, I'm like, it's these three people, one of whom is a child, and they're taking on this whole scary empire. Like, how is this working? Seems like their technology would be better.
Yeah, that's one line that I always laugh at is like, these are stormtrooper shots. Only they could be so precise. And then they can't hit anything for the rest
Nothing
of them.
is ever, no one is ever, like, I would say, 95% of the shots anyone made in that film were missed? Probably?
Yeah, the actual fighting, the combat in it, definitely they put more into it in the later movies, because both the lightsaber battle,
oh my god,
people,
the lightsaber battle was like, the choreo was so basic.
Yeah,
it really shows that it's an old man and a stunt man who can't see out of his mask,
like,
or a character who's on a respirator. He's yeah, but it's so funny because the for as much as it is like pretty clunky, like there's this giant super choreographed lightsaber fight in Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
that's episode 1.
Is that Darth
like,
Maul?
It is Darth Maul.
And
yeah,
Obi-Wan?
and everyone and Qui-Gon Jinn, yeah. And people are like, "Oh, that's the lightsaber fight we've all been wanting," and it's like, yeah, but it also is completely I don't care when we get to that point in that movie. It's like, yeah, they're fighting, they're flipping, but like this has a little, it still has stakes to it. It's still like I think this pretty much proves that Star Wars isn't about cool fights, because the gun battles too are just a lot of them standing and shooting. I think there's another kind of intangible that it's got.
Well, it almost even, this one, obviously, like they said, the Force, they mention it, but it kind of, it wasn't as primary as I thought. Like, I know it played a role in the solution at the end, but you care more about Darth Vader. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of secondary, which I thought was interesting.
Right. And that's one of the things I'm talking about that comes into play far more in the second movie. Like, what the Force is fleshed out. And then, of course, in every subsequent movie, they changed what it was, and I hate it. But
that's
the Force as taught by Yoda is really interesting. But we're not at that movie quite yet. I completely agree, Sam, in that the scene is like clunky, but we at least really care about Obi-Wan. Like, Alec Guinness has us like in the palm of his hand. He's so charming, and like, as Luke says, he's a great man. And,
I love that they call him
faster.
We don't want him to
faster
be
and more emotion.
I love that they call him Ben too. That was probably one of my favorite things in the movie. I was like, wow, all my life I've been hearing this Obi-Wan character, and then they're like, oh, old Ben. I was like, that crazy wizard. They literally say, I'm like, he sounds like he's referring to old Greg at this point. He's just like,
but you can call me. But you can call me Ben.
There were, I hate to do this, but there were two Family Guy jokes that like stuck in my head that I still think are funny when they did the Star Wars episode. One of which is Luke saying, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wonder if that's old Obi-Wan Kenobi who lives out on the desert. Because it's just so obvious. And the other one is Porkins being so gigantically fat that his X-Wing nosedives into the Death Star and grinds into a million pieces.
When they cut to the one overweight X-Wing fighter and then they say his name is Porkins,
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, man, guys, come on.
Come on. Also, he really knew his shit. He knew what was fucking going on. Have some respect.
I just always wonder what he means when he says, I can hold it. What is he holding?
A fart.
Right, exactly, yeah. And again, why was Darth Vader flying? It just made no sense.
I think of him as being sort of trying to think of how to put this. Like they brought him on because he's this like combat maestro, but they sort of put up with his other stuff. So it's like I think of him as being like, they're like, yeah, we need him on our side, because he's the best fighter we've got. And look, he's got this force power, but also like he's also a religious nutcase who we want to use for our bidding, but also kind of don't love.
Okay, that makes
Because
sense.
I think
So he's kind of on the side still. He's not the full-on leader.
I love the garbage masher
Yeah.
scene. I don't even have anything interesting to say about it except it's like very thrilling and funny at the ending. That's like my biggest laugh in the movie when they're all like,
And
"Oh
he's
my
like,
god,
"They
they're alive," and
died!
C-3PO
They
is
died!
like, "Oh, their screams, they're terrible."
That was great.
That feels,
oh my god.
That's the one scene that feels the most like the stuff that George is pulling from. Like that feels like a pulp thing. Like that or like a I could see that being a scene in Johnny Quest. That like I mean
Right.
like it's great. It's very it feels like something an adventure story of like, oh, we're stuck in the thing and we're trying to escape the thing from crushing us. The walls it's a little Indiana Jonesy too. It's great.
What were the name of the sand people?
Tusken Raiders.
Tusken Raiders.
What?
Ryan, can you do the sound?
No. The scary ones that almost killed them.
Yeah.
When they were looking and they're like, oh, that's definitely one of them, and then suddenly one appears before Luke. The scream C-3PO gives, that little shot of him going ah, was gold. I was like, yes, I'm here for this comedy. I feel like the comedy level of it was bubbling a little underneath the film. I think I'm too I'm also used to like Marvel films these days where they're like trying to crack out more jokes. But that was maybe my favorite shot of the show. I rewatched it 3 times.
That is the other thing about this that I think really works and it works in this movie specifically is that it is ultimately fun. Like it's an adventure movie and it's light. It all feels pretty light. Like and again, not something that George has always somehow the perfect recipe happened that allowed that to come to the forefront because I don't think that tone comes forward at all in the prequels at all. Like that kind of adventure.
I think he's trying.
Yeah.
But we learn that when he tries, it's really embarrassing and sometimes racist because all the humor in the prequels are like weird cartoon aliens that are usually ethnic stereotypes.
You know exactly which character that was.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh wait, hold on. Guess which character from Star Wars Episode 1 I am. Andy.
That's Watto.
No, God, these were 2 slaves. This is all getting cut out. I'm playing an alien, guys.
Or the Trade Federation people.
I'm not even going.
Who will talk like they're from Jackie Chan.
Cutting all of this out. Yeah, boy.
I didn't come up with this fucking George Lucas.
I know. But actually, even Joanna, to your point of it all being kind of under the surface, there aren't a lot of jokes, and that is actually something that I feel in that I don't feel in this that I feel in the new ones, and is the Marvel thing where and this is not a harsh criticism I have of Marvel movies, but like it always feels like it's a serious action film that someone went in and added jokes to.
Yeah.
And I feel that in the new trilogy of Star Wars movies, but I don't feel that here. Like this, everything feels like a light adventure from start to finish.
Right.
And whereas I think like the new ones get into like dark melodrama action film, and then we'll have gags, and I think that's a big difference.
Yeah. It's definitely, we could have a whole podcast about this, which I think is the third time I've said this podcast, but it's true. How in the late 90s, 2000s, we'll say up until the late 2000s, every action movie had to be extremely straight-laced. Like, everything was played, like, very dark, very grim. And then the social, I don't know, stigma's probably not the right word, but it's close. The social stigma changed, and people found that funny. And found it, like, laughable that you were taking yourself so seriously. And now it's flipped. And now it seems like every action movie has to be, like, very funny and, like, full of jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to strike that right balance. And I think Star Wars hits it, but it's a little older. So maybe the jokes, like, seem a little, like, quaint and quiet compared to, like, what humor hits us nowadays.
Well, but
That's my
it never seems like it's setting out to make us laugh particularly.
Right.
It's
Right.
more like, hey, we're just gonna have a good time and go through this. It feels fairly, but tonally it feels pretty flat in that or consistent, I should say. It has some funnier moments, but everything is kind of like it never feels like it's putting its own movie on pause to like make a joke.
Yeah. Like there are a few, I can't remember exactly, but like generally I'm like, haha, Marvel, yes. But there are a few times where I'm like, that really killed the mood of the scene, you having to throw a joke in that very serious moment.
Yeah.
So that's disappointing.
Oh, there's I felt that more than I've ever felt that feeling in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
There was a point where I was like, it's really strange because this movie is it's actually so serious, but they are just relentlessly joking at you in the midst of it, and it just really threw me off. Like it's also something that has always been a hard thing for me to deal with. It's like already a thing that bothers me in movies, just anyway. So yeah, but that was something I liked about this. Was just like, oh, this is an adventure movie.
Yeah, it wasn't like they were trying too hard for the jokes. They just kind of threw one up every now and again and continued on their way.
But somebody get this walking carpet out of my way.
Right.
Classic.
Which I believe she would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, that's
He
gotta
was-
be so racist. Can you imagine?
You can't say walking carpet anymore.
He was so cute. I loved him.
Yeah. Peter Mayhew, who plays Chewbacca, is a very sweet guy. I'm glad I got to meet him before he died.
Aw.
Yeah.
I asked him why he thought people latched on to Chewbacca so much, and he said he just seems like a childhood teddy bear or your favorite puppy when you were growing up, and it just like, I think it's as
And
simple
his
as
anger, his like quick bursts, you love him for it. You're like, yeah, be mad. You're like, yeah, shoot, fuck him up. Oh, you ruined the plan. It's okay.
that. Or when he gets angry that he's losing at space
Yes.
chess. It's adorable.
I love him.
Well, we're coming to about the end here. So, what are our closing thoughts on Star Wars?
I gotta watch the rest just because I need to just like know what happens.
Hell yeah.
I think, yeah, I'm like, what is gonna happen? I think my closing thoughts on this one are like watching it now and just my general interest being what they are. I was like, was this the film of a generation? And then, like, obviously you're like, yeah, it was.
It kind of was.
But again, hearing more from you guys, like the collaboration aspect and the things that made it significant at the time makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like, if you didn't see it as a kid, it'll never hit as hard because it just has that special mythic quality. But I think it says a lot that you still really enjoyed it and saw, that it was worthwhile. I think it is just like great classic movie making.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of alluded to this, but it sort of worked for me more than I expected, which is dumb to say. But I think I've said this. Ryan and I have had many a discussion off camera, and I actually don't know whether I like this one or Empire are better. I know most people say Empire is the best one, and I'm sort of like, these two are a tier of their own for me, and I don't always know which way I skew. But I will say, like, the this time I really liked it, and my general thing I've always said is that I feel like it's a movie. It's if this movie were a student trying to get into a college, it's a student with pretty good grades who also did a lot of extracurricular activities,
Yes.
and is thus
Yes.
a really good candidate for college. Because like, it's not, the dialogue can be clunky. The performances by two of our three young actors can be hit and miss. It's not like the most complex film. It's super hero's journey simple, but it kind of has like the production design's so good, and the music, and everyone's still so likable that it's just kind of hard to it still works. It ends up working and hitting tapping a nerve that just kind of works.
That's what I found too. Like, you get the sense that they're at least trying at something bigger, but then I was like, I don't know if that's because I know where it came to eventually. You know what I mean? But right, like, I do have questions of, like, I would be curious to know a little bit more about this universe.
Absolutely, and that's what we'll get into with Empire Strikes Back.
So we're gonna do that one too?
Well, we should.
I guess we
should do the
should,
first
because
three.
this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get to them eventually, but I promise you all, next episode will be a Godzilla movie, and one very appropriate for this dreary, shall we say, smoggy time we're living in. I hope you're all doing well. I have a ton of fan comments, but I'll save those for the main episode.
Wait, just share one.
Yeah, I want
Just
one.
share
Yeah,
one.
we need their, support, validation.
We need
why
validation.
we do this.
We only do this for people's praise.
Yeah. Maybe two.
All right. Let me find
Pat
one.
our ego. No.
Yep.
All right, I've got a comment from Drew S.
Woo.
The podcast is great and worth the wait. I'm excited to hear you guys take on the Hezai and Millennium
Well, he's going to
series.
have to wait, because I don't know what those are.
He will have to wait quite a bit, but
Drew,
we'll get to him.
We will not hesitate to give you our opinions.
Drew, hang in there.
Now I've got one from Onan R. And he said, I enjoyed the new episode. This was some time ago. I recently got the Criterion Collection Godzilla set they released. It's so awesome. I'm going to start watching them and re-listen to past episodes. Keep on doing great things. Thank you.
Oh,
Why is no one voting? We remind him every time.
I think we can only assume that they don't like either of us.
Yeah, that's true.
To boost you guys' ego a little bit, this was some time ago. I may have even told you about this, but there was one guy who was like, you know what, you should start a Discord server for Godzilla fans who are embarrassed by other Godzilla fans. And so I think that he sees a little bit more of your perspective.
Join us.
Wonderful. And again, I guess without getting into too much, in the last year, I have become a Godzilla expert thanks to this podcast, which
Same.
seems crazy to say, but it has in a big way. Now suddenly that is my role.
I have hyped up the first Godzilla film to about 12 people that are close to me in life, who are film people who haven't seen it. And I'm like, wow. And I recommend the Matthew Broderick one every day I can.
All the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, knock me right back down.
That one's in heaven for me, remember?
I know.
Snappy
I
dialogue.
put it in awesome hell. Oh, so snappy.
We got a little off track
yes.
here, but the point is, we thank you guys so much for continuing to listen. I know we've had these gaps here, but hopefully you understand that life is hard, especially right now. So take care of yourself, and we'll be back with you soon. So until then, keep spreading the word of Godzilla and Star Wars. Have you ever thought about having a giant radioactive dinosaur on the Death Star? I don't know why I jumped into that at the last possible second. Anyway, bye everybody.
What an ending.
If you haven't yet, leave a nice comment or review wherever you like to listen. That would really help us out. That's it for this show, but we'll see you soon. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.